Good evening. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Just got a notification from YouTube that I've got up to 8 hours to do this for. But don't worry, even I can't talk for 8 hours leaving the emergency services, so I'm not going to. But I do want to try and give you as much time and as much value as possible. So definitely going to do 45 minutes. And who knows, if I don't get through any questions and the questions that I've got already, then maybe I'll talk for longer. But yeah, and if Theresa May is watching, yeah, I don't know what's happened this evening, but if you do need a job in 2019 as well, Theresa, then give us a shout. So anyway, what we're going to talk about is hopefully most of you guys watching are thinking about leaving or considering your options for 2019, whether that's policing, paramedics, fire, prisons, probation, teachers, actually the services, any kind of public service. The challenges are all the same, which also means on the positive side, the opportunities are all pretty similar too. So I'm going to try and go through a few different themes, some common things that we've been asked recently a lot, but also a lot of the things that have come up in the 3 years that we've been doing this and the hundreds of people that we've helped move on to all kinds of different things. So the opportunities are out there, but they don't come for free and they don't come easily. And the people who are most successful are the people who've got the best plans and who take the best actions, just like anything else in the world, I suppose. One of the first things that people say to me about all this kind of thing really is, where do I start? So I guess that's the easiest place for us to start too, is, where do we start? So actually, what I'm going to say to you is where I don't think you should start. And I'll repeat that, where I don't think you should start is by going straight to Indeed or any big job engine like that, whether it's whatever site it is, doesn't have to be Indeed, because all you're getting then is the whole spectrum of everything that's out there possibly. And this sounds a little bit weird to say it like this, but how are you going to find what you're looking for if you don't know what you're looking for? It's impossible, right? It just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry to break this to anyone who's tried this, and I'm not criticizing at all because I've done it before myself and perfectly natural. But if you go to a big job engine or just randomly upload a CV onto something, expecting that that's going to somehow magically read your mind, read the job market, and send you back the answer, then I'm sorry, but it's not. Maybe you've got a 1 in a million chance of that happening, but probably not even that. Also, bear in mind that any advert that does get that far, by that point, potentially it's not even a real advert in the sense that it's expired or it's only being listed because it has to be, but the job's already gone. And also, by the time it gets that far, the fact you're seeing it and it's that easy to find means it's going to be that easy to find for the other 300 people that apply for it. Again, even if you are the best person for the job, if 300 applications land on the desk of the person who's got to do that, it reduces your chances of winning that competition. So what we really want to say in terms of where do I start is take a step back from that, take a step further back from going straight out and going straight for, okay, I'm going to go and look at job ads. Well, what are you looking for? How are you going to know what the right thing is? Do you even know? Do you have a checklist? Do you have a list of things you want and things you don't want? Do you have an idea of what the hard ceiling is for salary, for hours, for location? What kind of work is actually going to be enjoyable and fulfilling to you? Because again, the people who make the best moves, make the most successful moves, do it with a positive mindset of where I am now isn't working for me for whatever reason, and there's nothing wrong with that. Life goes on. But then they look at it and think, okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my surroundings and I'm going to find something that I actually do want to do. I'm not saying that everybody is always going to wake up in the morning and cartwheel down the street into work, because work is work sometimes, and that's real life. But fundamentally, if you're doing this from the point of view of I'm looking for something better, then that's the way to do it, not TJF or whatever you want to call it, and I just want to escape something that's making me unhappy. because what that tends to lead to is out of the frying pan and into the fire. You take something because it's just something else, and then 6 months down the line, you find that actually you have exactly the same issues, exactly the same frustrations, and you're back to square one. But actually, you're probably even further back now because you've had one perceived as unsuccessful move. So all those limiting beliefs and all those reasons not to move become bigger. So what you should do, and this is what a lot of people don't do because it doesn't always come naturally, is think about it first. Think about what you actually want from the move. Think about what you actually don't want from the move. Think about what you're offering, what your skills are, and just try and, even if you physically get a piece of paper and write down 10 things that you want to get out of a move. And I'm not just talking about salary or not working nights or whatever it is, although those might be perfectly valid things. It could be anything. It could be, I want to work with people. I want to help people. It might be, I don't want to work with people anymore because I've been doing that for too long. It might be, I like detailed work. I like slow time, detailed, methodical work. You might be the opposite. You might say, actually, I like the high level strategy. Someone else can do the detail, but I'm an ideas person. Great. Because my point that I'm coming to is it's you that we're talking about, not what everyone else you know who's left the police or ambulance service did, but what do you want? What's going to work for you? And that's the key thing. Yes, by all means, get other people's opinions and experiences and insights on things, but they're not you, and they're not going to be sitting in that interview room when you go for that job interview. They're not going to be going to that job every day for the next couple of years. So you've got to make sure that before you even start the ball rolling, you understand, or you're willing to do the work to understand what it is that you actually want, and then what it is that you actually offer. So that's where to start. And I think often that's a little bit of the opposite way around to how people think about it. But I would just urge you, stop and think a little bit before you press the button on sending out applications or even searching, and be a bit of a sponge and just see how much information and insight you can soak up. And if that means you have to, sit there and write a piece of paper down, what do I want, then do that. It's a massive part of the thing. And I think, veering onto the emotional side of things, I think those of us, and I guess this probably applies to anyone watching this, who come from a public service background, you're probably not used to putting yourself first and being a little bit selfish. But it's your life, it's your career. So don't feel that you have to just do what everyone else who's ever left the police or the ambulance service or fire brigade or prison service did, because it's great. If it works out for them, great, but it doesn't have to be your pathway too. So the importance of being yourself, basically. All of these are going to link in together. So although I've got a few sort of themes here that people have asked questions about, they're going to all link in together, because you have to look at this as a whole package as well. You can't just do one bit of it in isolation and expect that suddenly it will, somehow work out. And I know that there'll be people watching this who've done hundreds probably of applications and maybe never got feedback, maybe got a thanks but no thanks, or so I'm not saying that there's one magic way that you can do this and you'll apply for the first job and you'll get it. That's happened to some people, and fantastic, but it's persistence is the key to a lot of this, because it's a competitive market. Networking is probably the number one thing that people have asked about, and I think it comes back to what I was just saying on the networking. Who do you know? Networking gets blown out of all proportion in a lot of people's minds, and I get why it's uncomfortable. And I've been to enough business networking events at 6 o'clock in the morning where the last thing you want to do is be kind of chatty and sell yourself or sell what you're selling. but that's human nature. But what you all do have is a network. Whether you've got 10 connections on LinkedIn or 10,000, it's not just about that. It's about all the people you know in real life too. It's about all the people they know. It's about all the communities that you're part of, whether that's a physical, your local village, town, county, community, or a virtual one in the sense that by being a police officer or ex-police officer, you're a member of that community. That gives you access to a network, right? It gives you a network of well, probably less than this now, but 120,000-ish, I think, that are left, police officers in the UK. You've got an instant icebreaker to talk in sort of networking terms with any of those people because you share something with them. So any of those people are a networking connection. Any of the people who, like me or lots of other people in business who are emergency services, ex-police, straight away you've got a reason to send me a message and say, oh, I see we both work for the Met Police. There you go. That's about as complicated as it needs to be as an introduction. And just look up, use a combination of these things. If somebody asked me about networking events or conferences, face-to-face things, what's better? Is it better to go to face-to-face events, or is it better to use LinkedIn? Or use both and use them to help each other. If you know that you're going to the, conference of cybersecurity professionals next week, look on LinkedIn in beforehand, because I bet you people are talking about it. Or can you look and see who's exhibiting or who's speaking or who's going to be there? Within that, who is also in your target market? And go there with a list. Go there armed with a list of, okay, here's 5 people. If nothing else, I want to speak to these 5 people at this conference, just so they put a face to the name, or I ask them about what opportunities there are in Manchester at the moment. Use the two to your advantage. There's a great example recently of one of the guys that I was in touch with via LinkedIn, actually, who saw a job opportunity at a local company, and funnily enough, being an investigator, used all legal methods, I hasten to add, but used a bit of nous and a bit of proactivity to find a phone number for the HR department. He called them, he spoke to them. I think they were a bit shocked that somebody had actually gone to the sort of proactive lengths to do that. But the next thing you know, he's having a conversation about the job role, the job description, the potential benefits, blah, blah, blah. And he's got a face, they understand who he is. And straight away, human nature says, well, this guy must want to work here because he's bothered to do that rather than, just sending off a CV via Indeed like everyone else. That, unfortunately, that job, it didn't go all the way through, but there's nothing more you can do than that. And I think that's another point of it, that sometimes there will be doors that just aren't going to open, but all you can do is do the best you can do, make the actions, be proactive, give yourself the best possible chance, and sooner or later the right door will open, trust me. It might take a while, it might happen on the first day, it might happen after a year, but it's the same we can all think back to getting into any emergency service, any of the public services. How many people really got in on the first attempt, or didn't have to go and do some sort of work first to get in? Once you got in, when you then wanted to go to a specialist unit or to be promoted, did that happen on the first attempt? I don't know, maybe it did. Maybe you're one of those people who gets everything right first time, but most of us don't. So, don't give up on the first hurdle. Be confident if you're doing the right things, putting the right actions together in the right strategy, then the door will open, but you have to keep knocking. That's the unfortunate reality. So networking, I think, don't fall into the trap of thinking it's some kind of special dark art magic that some people you either have or you don't. Yes, some people are naturally gregarious and outgoing and social butterflies, and they find that kind of, lots of little round tables with coffee machines on anything other than kind of soul destroying. But if that's not you, that's fine as well. How can you do it? Are you someone who's going to do a bit more research behind the scenes and try and, send someone an email or try and meet up with someone one-to-one rather than a big group. Again, do what works for you, but don't think that it's some kind of magic that you can't learn or you can't do, or that you don't have a network, because you do. It's just a case of maybe you need to grow it in a different direction, or maybe you need to focus it on a certain topic. But you have a network, your network has a network, and so on and so on. So don't get too obsessed about I don't have a network and I don't know how to speak to people, because again, and I'm about to talk about transferable skills, I would say the number one skill I'm willing to bet anyone watching this has is the ability to talk to people, and people at any level, in any situation, with any kind of target or goal. So actually, in my experience, people leaving the public services and emergency services do really well in interviews or face-to-face selection processes for that reason. You know that what's the worst that can happen? You've been in a lot worse situations than an interview in a nice office block somewhere. So, and that comes across, that personality, that can-do attitude, that adaptability, that comes across. And those are such valuable things. People, compare it to a sales process. People buy from people. So, if you can get your personality across, that's what people are going to buy into. Yes, you need the technical prowess for whatever the job is to a greater or lesser extent. But at the same time, really what people want to know is this person going to fit into our team? Are we going to put them in front of our clients or suppliers? Are they a good fit? What kind of person are they? So getting your head a little bit away from the leasing or emergency services model of have you been on the course, and that being basically the selection process. Have you been on the course and come to an interview where we're going to ask you 2 hours worth of increasingly niche questions about the subject matter? Don't get me wrong, if you want to be a brain surgeon or something really specialist, then of course they want to know that you know how to do it, you know how to do the actual work. But most things aren't really about that, and you can learn the subject matter. What you can't learn, or it takes a long time to learn, is your personality, your approach to things, your people skills, your problem solving, your flexibility. That's what people want to see. And time again, that's what I've never really advertised or come out by people, because, and I get this, I'm not criticizing anyone, I get it, because we're not used to doing that. We're not used to saying, actually, do you know what, I'm really good at these things. And I'm not saying you have to suddenly become one of the contestants on The Apprentice and start, become a different person or become full of hot air. I'm just saying there's nothing wrong, especially in CV and interview time, with being bold and being self-confident, because it's not a time for modesty. When you get to the job and, you be yourself, but just be confident and be comfortable in saying, this is what I'm really good at. So, transferable skills, or actually what I sometimes like to call translatable skills, because I think that's what you're really doing here. So I know for a fact that every single person watching this has a lot of skills. They're probably all different sets and a blend of all different sets, but none of this is about saying you have to suddenly go and equip yourself with a load of new skills. There might be a specific thing that you need to go and do for a particular industry, like if you want to go into project management and you don't have a Prince 2 or an ITIL qualification, or you want to go to health and safety but you haven't done NEBOSH or anything like that. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. Those aren't really skills. Okay, they're accreditations or they're qualifications. They're things you can learn. I'm talking about you again as a person, and what are you good at and what are your skills? And I'm thinking about more along the lines of things like I'm a problem solver, or I'm a decision maker, or I'm a communicator. I influence people, I negotiate, anything like that. I investigate and then chunk it down again, because what will happen is somebody like me will ask you annoying questions like, well, so what? And if they don't, all that will happen is the person who reads your CV or interviews you will sit there thinking, well, yeah, fascinating person, but not really sure how any of that's relevant to this business that they're applying to be part of. So, okay, you're an investigator. What does that mean? We'll probably know what it means because we've been in that industry. What about somebody who doesn't know the first thing about policing, but watched an episode of The Bill 20 years ago? Do they know what ABE interview is? No. And unless you tell them, they're either going to stay not knowing or they'll make up their own mind. And that's probably not going to be in your favour because they just won't know. So break it down, and break it down in terms of an offer, a result. You know, I investigate complex problems or complex crimes by gathering intelligence and information from different sources and using it to make actions that are lawful, effective, and eventually, I don't know, have reduced incidents of burglary in my area by 30%. Okay, thanks very much. And how does that translate to a job you're going for in, I don't know, logistics? Well, it shows that you know how to gather a lot of things that are going on at the same time, point them in a different direction, make a strategy, take action, and say, actually, I'm going to target that problem and I'm going to come out of it with a genuine, tangible result. So really spell it out. Be proactive. You have to be the one who says to somebody, look, this is what, if you hire me, this is what you're going to get for it, because that's what the conversation is. You know, if we take away the sort of awkwardness or anything like that, it's a negotiation. And again, I'll wager that anyone watching this knows how to negotiate, because you've negotiated more serious situations than that before. So don't just go in there, you know, whether that's literally go into a room in an interview or whether it's through a CV or LinkedIn or whatever. Don't just leave it hanging and think, oh, okay, well, I've told them who I am roughly and they'll work it out, because they won't. People don't have the time or the inclination to fill in the blanks for themselves. So you're leaving it to their assumption, and that won't work, because somebody else is going to come into that room after you and say, look, right, you hire me, you're getting somebody who makes things happen. I've made them happen in this industry before, or I've made them happen in a similar industry. This is my approach. This is how it translates perfectly to your industry. And I think actually that what I would bring to this role is a level of rigor or compliance or innovation that you don't have at the moment. Okay, you know, and again, it's not a perfect science, so they might say, well, actually, do you know what, that wasn't really the direction we were thinking of going in 2019. Well, that's sad, but you can't do anything about that. But at least they had a very clear idea of what you were saying, what you were offering them, and then, you know, they're in no uncertain terms about what the value is that you're bringing. But if you just leave it hanging and say, I don't know, I've been a police officer for 20 years, full stop. I know the value of that, and you probably do. But does somebody else? Probably not. And they're not going to ask you, oh, well, that's really interesting. Could you tell us more about that? Because if they've got 100 applications on the desk, they'll just go, okay, well, it's fascinating, but let's move on to the next one. And I'm not trying to demoralize anyone by saying that. It's the harsh reality. And you know, I'm sure lots of people watching this have recruited and interviewed themselves. You know, it can be an awful process to go through when you're sitting there on your second or solid week of interviewing and people haven't done their research or don't answer the question, or you kind of wonder, well, why are you here? You just want somebody to say, look, I really want you to hire me. I want to work for this business, and here's why you should hire me. We have to get away from this idea that it's some kind of competition where people are trying to catch each other out and not find the right person. If I advertise for a vacancy, I want to find the right person for that job as quickly and as efficiently as I can. I don't want to spend a month interviewing people who have nothing to do with it and aren't qualified. So give them the opportunity to see what you can do. And that's it. You know, it's there's an opportunity for them to find out about you, and it's an opportunity for you to find out about them. It's a two-way street. Is this going to work out? Is this a good fit? Are we going to work well together and get some great results together in whatever field it is? If yes, brilliant. If no, that's not a problem. Life goes on, but at least you've gone there and given it 100%. So on the list, we've also got degrees. People are asking about degrees. So coming back to that paper sift process, and again, I said it just now, my experience is people leaving the emergency services do brilliantly in interviews because of great personality, but the paper sift's a struggle. A lot of that's to do with how we tend to express skills, getting away from competency-based frameworks and into personal skills. But also, the elephant in the room is often degrees, and a lot of job specs will say must have a degree or desirable criteria, bachelor's degree and upwards or something like that. So how do you get around that if you don't have one because you started a professional career at 16, 18 and you've built it that way? Some places will see that as a deal breaker and there's not much you can do about that. However, what I would say to that is, do you want to work somewhere whose primary concern is what you may or may not have done academically 10, 20, 30 years ago? I wouldn't. So I would say that's annoying, yes, but probably not, the end of the world. Then we come on to people who use that as just another way of filtering down the numbers because they put an advert out there. They know they're going to get, well, what was the latest train drivers vacancies, 20,000 applications or something absolutely crazy. What's an easy way to just filter that field down to a manageable level is to put in things like that. So it doesn't mean that having a degree is the be all and end all. Although for some reason UK policing seems to think that's the case these days, which is totally at odds with the way the rest of the job market is going, thankfully. It just means they're trying to filter the field down somehow. So I come back to my point about networking and about who you know and about a strategy. Because for a start, I would say if your strategy depends on an online application and that's it, then it's not a particularly broad or resilient strategy. So can you get in front of somebody who's part of that process or knows somebody who is, and influence them, influencing being one of your skill set, that actually they need to look a little bit beyond degrees. And there are people like me out there trying to do that on a bigger scale on your behalf as well. Don't worry, trying to influence about transferable skills and all that stuff. But, there are people behind that process somewhere. And if you can, and there's nothing nefarious or wrong about this, it's just the way it is. If you can meet somebody in that process and say, look, let's go for a coffee or have a chat on the phone or whatever it is, and they think, you know what, that we wouldn't have looked there before, but that person coming out of the emergency services actually is the kind of person we want. So yeah, we will interview them and not so fussed about them not having a degree. So it comes back to that point of proactivity and trying to speak to a human being, trying to find some way of getting around that, because there's no point just blindly applying for something that says we want you to have a master's degree if you don't have a master's degree, because you think you know what's going to happen with that application. So yes, it's often a little bit ridiculous, but I'm just trying to explain the reasons why, and something you can do about it. And I think this leads me on to a slightly broader point about job descriptions. And I speak to people all the time who, degrees is probably the number one example, but people who look at job specs and they say, oh, do you know what, I'd be great at that, but I don't have the specific qualification or accreditation or professional membership that they list. And that's one of 10 things they list in the job spec. If you've got 7 out of the 10 things, then I would say it's well worth going for. And how can you express your potential to get the other 3? Or how can you translate something that you've done elsewhere that shows the other 3? I often say to people, it's like buying a house. you know full well that when you go into that estate agent's, you've got 200 grand in your back pocket, and you've got a wish list of all the things you want in that house. You know, and they know that house doesn't exist at that price, unless there's something really dodgy going on. And it's the same with job specs, really. They know that somebody in the £50,000 a year market who's got all the things they want and is available right now doesn't exist. They just don't. So it's about compromise. So what you need to do, in the same way that when you look at that house and you say, okay, well, the third bedroom is too small, or it doesn't have the I don't know, doesn't have the hot tub that I wanted, or whatever it is. Do you negotiate on price, or do you say actually we do without the hot tub, or something a bit more practical? But that's the point, and it's the same with job ads. If they say, here's our list of personal criteria and here's our list of professional criteria, and a good example of this, I've worked with lots of people who were perfect for, let's talk about health and safety consultancy as an example. Perfect for it on paper, personality wise, skill set wise, but the advert said NEBOSH or IOSH qualified, and this person wasn't. So the worst thing you can do in that situation is think, well, I haven't got that piece of paper, so forget it, what's the point? Well, what this person actually did was rang up the HR department and said, look, here's very briefly a little bit about me, what I can do, why I think I'm good for the job. So you're already influencing them, selling them a little bit, and also they're going to think, well, you've bothered to ring us, which most people wouldn't. And they agreed in the end that she would get the job, but in the first month or 2 months, she would go on this course alongside work. And I think they subsidised it, or I can't remember the exact details on that. So it goes to show, ask, because what happened in that case was they didn't have any applications, didn't have any good applicants, because people were put off by the fact that they were looking for something unrealistic. So the person who said, you know what, even if I'm not that 100% that person right now, I've got the potential to be, just by going on the course. And a lot of these courses, do your research again, because if it's just that you have to do a particular thing, if it says you need to have a master's in architecture, that's not something you can do overnight. But some of them, it might be something you can do in a weekend or a week, or around work. And again, I come back to the thing of, it's not always easy, and a lot of those people that people often look at and say, oh well, they landed on their feet, I know for a fact that a lot of them took annual leave to go and do a course in something other at their own expense. And I'm not saying that should always be the way it is, but right now that often is the way it is. So don't rule yourself out of something just because you're looking down the bullet points and thinking, I can't say I'm 100% every single one of those things. And that's not what recruitment should be about. It shouldn't be about, are you already the person doing this? And because otherwise, why would you be applying for it? If it's an upward trajectory, which it should be, then it's about your potential looking forward, which was a slightly unplanned, smooth transition into CV writing, which is another theme that I wanted to cover. So here's the difference between CVs or writing about yourself in the public sector in general terms into the private sector in general terms. In the public sector, people generally want to know, or generally talk about, things that have happened in the past. Tell us about a time when you showed resilience or something like that, and you're going to write a star model. This was the situation, this was my task, these were the actions I did, and this was the result. I've seen recently a few slightly more jazzy ones with an extra R on the end for reflection about, and these were the other options I considered. It's all looking backwards, and it becomes a bit, I did this, I did that. Great, nothing wrong with that. But what we need to get away from is that and start looking ahead, because what people want to know is, if I employ you and you come and start working in my team next Monday, what are you going to do? What's your potential? And think back to a couple of minutes ago, getting those other things on. They want you to grow into that role. You know, so talk about your potential, talk about your personal skills and attributes. All those competencies that you've talked about in PDRs or things like that internally, I'm not saying they're not valuable, they're great, but use those just as the evidence. Don't go straight in with, I'm going to tell you a really long story about a particular incident in lots of minute detail, because generally that's not what people want to know. They just want to know, in the star model world, the S and the T, people haven't really got time for that, and they're not really that fussed. They want to know about the A and the R. What do you do? What are the results you get? When you come and work for me, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? How is that going to work? And what are the results are going to be? Are we going to make more money? Are we going to detect more fraud? Are we going to, become more efficient somehow? Are we going to grow into a new country? Are we going to start using some new technology that you're a master of that we don't know about? And that's the kind of thing that needs to be up front in your pitch, whether it's written on a CV, whether it's written on your LinkedIn profile, whether it's what you're saying to people when you meet them at networking events or face-to-face or for a coffee. They need to know very quickly and very clearly what it is that you're offering them and why they want to interview you, hire you, and so on. People just don't. There's a stat going around that the average CV is read for 6 or 7 seconds. Whether that's true or not, the point is, if you go and look at your CV, read it for 6 seconds and see how far you get, you've got maybe a paragraph or two, if that, and a few bullet points to make an impact. So it needs to be a compelling, cohesive, punchy impact so that that person who might have already read another 25, 30 CVs that day can look at it and say, oh, Tom Wheelhouse, yeah, he's a guy who's got this background and skill set, and therefore we'll put him in the pile for an interview. I'm not sure who this Tom Wheelhouse character is, because he hasn't really explained. To be honest, I got so bored of reading his CV after the 3rd page that I don't know what he does and who he is, so let's not bother about him. So be bold, but talk about what you can do, not, this is your life. It's not an encyclopedia of previous achievements. Get those achievements in there as evidence so that you're saying, look, I'm a problem solver. I solve complex problems in closely regulated industries like yours, which means that actually you'll save money by detecting fraud earlier. And where I've done that before is X, Y, Z. So if they want to read all the previous, successes you've had, then they can. But straight away, you've gone in with, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is why you want me. And that's just I know it's a bit of a mindset change, but it's just about getting that across early. And, remember with CVs, it's a game, it's a process. CV is there to get you an interview. CV doesn't have to be there to tell them everything you've ever done to get you the job, to get your promotion in 2 years' time. It's just there to get you to the next stage, whatever that next stage is. So just put in what you need to put in to match the job description, to satisfy their process, and to get you to an interview where you can then start to build on it. So that's CVs in a very, very brief way of something that's a huge topic, but make it about you, make it interesting, make it appealing to look at. So one thing you can do, straight away is, if you've got a CV on your laptop, open it and close it from the folder a few times. When you open it, what's the first thing you react to looking at that file? Do you think, actually, yeah, I'm going to start reading this? Or do you think, oh, there's a lot going on here and I don't know where to start? Because that's what somebody else will do too. Print it out, see how it looks on paper. Does it look like it's too much going on? Does it look like it's not enough going on? And again, make it relevant. If you're going for a role in a very technical, very detailed industry, and what they've said is, we want to know all your cybersecurity certifications and things, maybe it will be a bit longer and a bit drier. That's fine. If you want to go and be, I don't know, some kind of creative in the creative industry in Shoreditch or somewhere, then you probably want to show on that CV that you've got some kind of creative and design talent. So it's going to look a bit more slick and a bit more interesting. Make it relevant. Think about that. It's all ways you can show what you can do. If it says I'm methodical and I produce accurate reports, make sure it's been spell checked and there aren't any errors in it, because it's going to hold your claim to be methodical and accurate under the waterline pretty quickly if you haven't spell checked it. So some of those are very simple concepts. I'm afraid there's no silver bullet, here's how to write the world's best winning CV. If there was, then people like me would be probably in the Bahamas by now, but there isn't. But there are a set of guidelines and a set of things you can do, and it all starts with making it compelling and making it relevant. Again, if you've got an emergency services background, think about it like using a radio, ABC, accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Or I had to think about that, so it goes to show how long ago that was I've done it. But make it concise, get your message across, and that's it. Okay, so don't feel the need to put a 30-year career in minute detail. Ask yourself, what does it actually say about me? What am I about? What do I do? And get that across in a way that somebody can understand it. If you've got somebody at home or a friend or whatever who doesn't know anything about your industry, great. Give it to them and say, to get them to read it and say, look, I'm prepared for the honest feedback. When you read that, what do you think about me? What does that say to you as me as a person? And if they say, well, I didn't get a lot of the technical stuff, but to me it says you're somebody who gets things done and knows how to lead a team and manage people, boom, then maybe that's what you want. If they say, well, do you know what? I wasn't really sure what you were saying. Were you saying you're a salesperson? Were you saying you're a project manager? Then it's feedback, and don't be afraid of feedback. We talked about networking and stuff earlier on. Don't be afraid of the right people who know what they're talking about, just saying to them, look, can you give me some feedback, and act on it, because it's the same old thing in any walk of life. Train hard and fight easy. If you can get lots of people to prepare you and give you feedback, then when it comes to the bit that matters, which is the job interview, you can sit there and think, well, actually, I'm quite confident about this because I know that I've already spoken to people in this industry and they've all said to me, yeah, you're coming across the kind of way we want to see. And I know that you'll, talk about this a bit more, this a bit less. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask people for advice, because it's the easiest way to find out. And, too often we all spend too much time wondering, I wonder what this person would think, or I wonder what this industry is like. Ask. That is the benefit of LinkedIn or real life even, or any of those things. Don't be afraid to go and ask. So then what else I've got on my list of things that people have said? What about other services outside the emergency services? So I'm absolutely a massive believer that in a positive sense, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. So I actually, it doesn't matter to me whether we're talking about policing, paramedics, the ambulance service in general, junior doctors, prisons, probation, border force. This is where I get to the stage of trying to remember every single one so I don't offend anyone. But teachers, all of those things are careers that people go into for certain reasons, personal ones. They're generally things that people don't go into to make a fortune. They do it because there's a meaning there or there's a personal reason there. And that's great. But what happens in pretty much all those industries, aside from the fact that they're all underfunded, undervalued, and we could go down that route and have a whole separate ranting webinar about that, but they all institutionalize you in a way. And it's I did a video before, which squeeze the stress ball, and I said about if you after 2 seconds it goes back to its original shape, but if you squeeze it and hold it there for a long time, it will take on the shape of the mold it's in, my hand in this case. But then when you come out of that, you've been in an industry for 20 years, whatever it is, of course you're going to have taken on the behaviors and the thought processes of that industry, because that's what you needed when you were there. So that's what makes it difficult to then come out of that and start thinking differently. And I come back to my previous point. You've got to ask and go out and, go for that help and advice and talk to people who've been there before, connections you can make, and just, research it, find out what is it like, what's different, what's changed. This is how, because all these things do change all the time. Recruitment processes, CVs, they're constantly evolving things. And for someone like me, it's a lot easier because I'm there every day. So it's easy for me to keep on top of it. But if you're someone who the last time you went to a job interview or wrote a CV was 10, 20, 30 years ago or never, then of course, it's perfectly human nature that it will be alien to you. So do as much as you can to close that gap, so that when you come to that interview day or meeting somebody, it's not a sudden surprise and it's not alien because you've prepared for it. And I think that's at the crux of all of this, really, is preparation and research and doing that work. And it all happens unseen. And, it's very easy to go on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, or hear about down the pub, oh, so-and-so only left the police last year and now he's working for such and such place earning 100 grand a year. Well, those things might be factually true, but from that, you don't know what that person actually did in the background. Maybe they spent a year before they left preparing. Maybe they took courses in their spare time. Maybe they were out networking at events, and that was how they got the opportunity. Maybe they were just lucky. That's life too. But don't be fooled into thinking that what you see on face value a lot of the time is reality, because often it isn't. And the only way to close that gap between perception and reality is to ask. So yes, absolutely. All this stuff I'm talking about, I often say police examples because that's my own background and that's where a lot of my work has happened. And I mean, I probably need to clone myself about 20 times over to tackle the NHS and teaching as well. But absolutely, I do believe that all this is completely transferable across all of those things. So yeah, if you're looking at this and you are in prison service, probation service, anything like that, absolutely, all of it applies. I thought then about preparing and planning a little bit, thinking ahead. A lot of people I talk to, they say, oh, okay, I'm looking for this role now. Or we're talking now about it's December and we're talking about 2019. I would suggest to you, or urge you actually, to think not just about 2019, but what are you going to be doing in 2021? Because again, that's where the people with a strategy and the big successes come into it, because they've thought, okay, where I really want to be eventually is over here somewhere. And I know that right now I've only got 60% of the skill set for that. And then what they say is, in the year in between, can I go to a stepping stone where I'm going to learn the bit that's missing? I don't know, for example, everything there is to know about risk management and security consultancy, that kind of world. But what you haven't really got on your CV is commercial acumen, because you've never worked in a private sector company. And that actually to go and work for a huge conglomerate as a consultant, they want to know that you can run a profit and loss, and they want to know that you can put together a deal and all that stuff. So realistically, you have to fill in that gap somewhere. And that big, 100 grand a year job might be a little bit out of reach for now. But is there a stepping stone in between the two, where you can go to something for a year and say, right, I'm going to go there specifically with the goal to add that extra string to my bow, so that in 18 months' time, when I'm in there and they realise I'm a good person, I know what I'm doing, I just need a little bit of extra skill, then you're in a position where you've sold them on you as a person, and now you're saying to them, look, here's the complete package, because I came in with a great technical expertise in my particular niche, and now I've added to that with the commercial now I'm the right person. And then they become one of those people who other people will start to say, oh yeah, we only left 18 months ago and he's already earning 100 grand. And that's how it happens a lot of the time. So think ahead as well. Think, if you're doing this as a new career move, if you're come to a point where you say, actually, all I want is, I want to top up my pension, or I actually, I'm in a position where I only need to do something on and off on a day rate or on consultancy, then great. You might say, actually, I just want to get something for the next year, and that's cool. No problem with that at all. But if you're, and increasingly this is probably, I imagine the people that are watching this, mid-service, younger in service, and you're thinking, I'm looking for another career, then don't just think, what's the job I'm applying for right now? Think, what path is that going to take me on? What's the plan? What's the actual strategy later on? I said this, I think, on a video before, but to me it makes sense. What makes the best snooker players isn't just the ability to pot lots of balls. It's the fact that they're always playing for, I don't know, I'm rubbish at snooker, but 3 or 4 shots ahead. They're thinking, right, okay, well, I'm going to pop that ball. Yeah, of course, because you need to do that. But where's the cue ball going to land up? What's happening next? Where's this going? What's my strategy? And that's what people do in this as well. And I think I was having a conversation earlier with somebody about career management, essentially. And I think what we don't realise sometimes is that in the public sector, there's a very strict, very clear structure there, whether it's rank, specialism, progression, and you know that actually, I don't know, the detective exam comes out at the same time every year, and that's the way it is. Well, in the private sector, there's obviously not that kind of thing because it's much more fluid. So it falls to you to manage your career. Think, right, okay, well, if I go and work on that team for the next year, then that will give me a good awareness of that particular area or that particular skill, and I'll probably get this and that course. Think about it in those terms. It comes down to you, again, to be proactive, to manage your career, and to think, what do I need? What are the pieces that I need on that puzzle to actually get to where I want to be? So again, it comes back to having that complete cohesive strategy, which says, here's what I can do, here's the person I am and what I'm good at and where I want to get to, but I'm just missing the one piece which says, I don't know, exposure to supply chain management. Okay, where can you go and put that piece in the puzzle so that this time round you got it, and then you're ready for the next big opportunity when it comes up. So yeah, think ahead, basically, is what I'm trying to say there. Think ahead and take control, basically, of your own career. Don't wait for things to come up or opportunities to come up. Get yourself in a position where you're ready to go and proactively go for them. What else have we got on the list? So who would be interested in my skill set? I think is probably a question that I asked quite a lot, and it's a good frank question. I'm a police officer, paramedic, firefighter, junior doctor, probation officer. Who actually is interested in that? Well, first of all, lots of people are, and I can point you in the direction of hundreds and thousands of people who are living proof of that, because they've gone and translated that into anything you can think of. And for the record, I don't just mean they do one of the obvious things. I'm absolutely not knocking anybody who is a train driver or works in the security industry or what else are the other kind of well-trodden paths. They're well-trodden paths for a reason, because those industries fit, and that's absolutely fantastic and that's great. But just beware the kind of stuff that says, well, actually, do you know what, if you've been a detective on major crime for all this time, why don't you come back and be a civilian investigator for £8.73 an hour because you're an investigator and that's where your skill set starts and finishes? Well, I won't. Frankly, I'm not having that, because it's just not true. If that's what you want to do and it works for you and you've thought through all this strategy and preparation and things that we've talked about, and that's what you want to do, then no problem with that at all. But I do have an issue with the idea that that's all you can do, because it isn't. Like I said, I'm more than happy, if you want to email me or whatever, to point you in the direction of people who've done all kinds of weird and wonderful things off a skill set that they came to me saying, oh, well, yeah, Tom, I've only been on response. And there's no such thing as only been on response, or only been on, only been a PCSO, only been a ambulance technician. There's no such thing. Like, they all have their own different skill sets, and all those skill sets have outlets that are valuable. So, for example, here's one I made earlier. Amazon, probably, well, I guess one of the biggest companies going. I think Jeff Bezos, I don't know if he's the richest man in the world anymore. Top 5 probably. Sorry if you're not, Jeff. But he said, and this is off the Amazon website about recruitment, what they want is, quote, leaders who can invent, think big, have a bias for action, and deliver results for their customers. And I guarantee you that describes, in one way or another, every single person watching this. Your field of interest might be different, your environment might be different, it might not be logistics or web services and all the other stuff that Amazon do, but are you somebody who has a bias for action, aka you get things done? Yes. Do you deliver results? Yeah, and they're, you know, life and death results every day, a lot of you. So, you know, you can't tell me that those skill sets aren't valuable, and that just goes to show, you know, Amazon aren't short of applicants for their job. You know, Jeff doesn't need to go out there looking for people. You know, plenty of people are knocking on the door. So if they're seeing the value of those kind of skill sets, then absolutely there are avenues, and there are people who want your skills. But I go back to what I said, I don't know, half an hour ago now, that they're not going to come knocking. Nobody is going to turn up to your briefing room tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and stick their head around the door and say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm from Amazon, and I was wondering if anyone fancies a 75k a year job with great prospects. I mean, that'd be great, but it's not going to happen. What can happen is if you go and track that person down and you say to them, through a well-considered, well-built strategy of CV, LinkedIn, networking, pitching, etc., here's what I can do, here's why I'm a good fit for your whatever division in Milton Keynes or wherever it is, they might go, all right, yeah, well, actually, do you know what? Let's talk about that. Good job with good prospects. So it's down to you. And I think I've been talking for an hour, and unbelievably, there are apparently still people watching this. I could go on for a long, long time, but I'm not going to, because I've tried to get the main points across. But that comes back to a good point to finish, I think, which it's down to you. It's all about you. First of all, work out and get some help if you want. You know, you can ask me, you can ask other people, find out what it is that you actually want. What is it? Why are you doing this? Why are you spending Wednesday night listening to me talk about this? Right, what is at the end of that process? Is it money? Is it hours? Is it family time? Is it fulfillment? Is it enjoyment? Is it a particular goal you've always had and it's been on the back burner? Whatever it is, it's absolutely fine. None of those are more valuable than the other, because it's down to you. So work out what it is that you want and why you're doing this, what it is you want to get from moving. Second thing, work out, it sounds incredibly sort of cheesy to say, work out who you are, but that's what I want you to do. Work out what kind of person you are. Work out what it is that you really do. What's important to you? What do people see you as the go-to person for? You know, even in your office, I often speak to people and say, people come to me when I'm always the one who gets the crap jobs, by which they mean I'm the one who gets the sort of difficult to talk to people or hard to engage. But what does that say about you in a positive sense? That you're a great communicator? So maybe that's it. You know, and that just makes you different to other people. That's fine. Maybe you're the person who's there, who's the decision maker, the leader. Maybe you're the problem solver. Maybe you're the detail person. Maybe you're the social person. Whatever it is, work out really clearly and confidently who you are and what you can do and what you can offer. And the third thing on the simplistic view of all this is, where is all that valuable? So you know what you want, and you know why you're the person who can do it and how those overlap. Now, where is there an opportunity to do that that fits your parameters? So you know that you're think of a very quick example off the top of my head. You know that you're a problem solver, you like to manage lots of fast moving things and it's complicated, but you see that clearly and you make it run smoothly, efficiently. You know that that's going to save people time, money and effort. And it just so happens that you've worked out that actually there's a lot of good opportunities in supply chain or logistics that do that. And it just so happens that you live in, I don't know, the Midlands. And it just so happens that in the Midlands, that's where DHL or somebody, that might even be true, have got a major distribution centre. Now we've got a strategy. Now we say, right, okay, what opportunities are there at DHL? Oh, funnily enough, on their website, they've got a job listed as supply chain manager / sort of internal investigations or something like that. Great. Go back to LinkedIn and you say, oh, actually, it turns out the guy who's in that team at the moment shares a mutual connection with me. Okay, make the connection, and so on and so on. The whole point being, if you've just seen that job by random on a big job engine and applied for it, you might have a 1 in 1,000 chance. But now that you've done all that work and you've got a strategy together, maybe that's a 1 in 5 chance. And those are the kind of odds we can work with. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to say, be yourself. Don't stray away from that. Be confidently and boldly in this for you, because that's why you're doing it. And very quick emotional side to it. Don't feel that, wanting to leave or thinking about leaving is, the right is wrong or anything like that, or that you're giving up. Because me and all the sort of other silent majority people in the outside world who are now members of the public will say thank you for doing however many years you've done or what you've done, and go and do something that makes you want to actually get up in the morning or at night, whatever shift you're on, and don't be afraid of that. Helps out there. Yeah. I've got 65 minutes into this without any kind of plugging, I think. So by all means, you can always get in touch with us and we'll chat to you. No obligations or anything. If you just want some ideas or to run some ideas past us or to chat through things, we'll do that. We do help with all the things I've mentioned, CVs, LinkedIn, the coaching side of it, about who you are, what you want, what's out there. Got an increasingly growing network of connections that we can help you with, and opportunities we can refer you on to. We've got a LinkedIn group which you can look at through my profile, where you'll find other people on the same journey for a bit of support, guidance, funnily enough, networking as well. And in 2019, early 2019, we're going to be coming to hopefully a town near you, assuming you live near one of the towns that we're coming to do some sort of fairly informal, very low cost networking, meetups, advice sessions. We can just come along again and meet us and meet other people and get the ball rolling if you're just feeling a bit stuck, because you're not the only one. I wouldn't do this kind of stuff if I thought there was nobody out there who would benefit. So back yourself, have as much of a break as you can over the Christmas and New Year period. If you're working, then take my hat off to you and stay safe. And yeah, let's go for it in 2019 and get you to where you want to go to. Thanks very much for watching that. And I think I just saw pop up that Theresa May still got a job. So that's one less client for us for 2019. But that's it. And we'll put some more up soon. Cheers.